Good morning, good morning. All around, the African dawn is singing to us. Woodpeckers, francolins, crested barbets, and there's just the most tremendous atmosphere. Welcome on the Dawn Safari. Remember, questions, comments, anything you'd like to say to us, we'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at wildearth.tv. In the control room this morning, we've got Tara and about 7 cameramen who are doing various bits and pieces. On the other vehicle, we've got Brent and Andrew. And behind camera this morning, we have Viam. That's his beautifully woolen gloved hand. And my name is James, in case you didn't know. And if you're a first-time viewer, you're especially welcome. We're sitting here in an ancient sea with to the east, where that glow of the beautiful sun is about to come up, the rhyolite mountains of the Lubombo, and to the west, the great expanse of the Drakensberg escarpment that extends 1,000 kilometers down the escarpment of South Africa. This ancient sea that we find ourselves in is called the Lowveld, and a little piece of it on which we are going to explore this morning is called Djuma, and a little bit to the west of us called Arathusa, part of an expanse of 3.5 million hectares of untrammeled wildlife wilderness. So this morning, our plan is to head down. We're going to check the hyena den quickly. There is one over here. Quite a lot of tracks going in and out, but because the cubs are pretty much old enough to be on their own now, I don't know that it's going to be active. Then there was tracks of a leopard heading down to the south, so we'll just follow up on those for a little while. My main intention is to check the southern boundary to see if the Styx pride of lions hasn't come back onto Djuma, and if they have, we'll follow them. If they haven't, well, we'll see what else the Kruger National Park has to give us this morning. No doubt it will be a lot. Thanks very much for everything, all the comments and questions last night. Very stimulating drive. Let's have the same again this morning. Here we go. For those of you who are worried about the temperature, Viam and I reckon it's about 12 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're just going to have a look in here to see if we can't find perhaps a few hyenas. They managed to tear off the door yesterday of our rubbish dump. So they're quite powerful things. The door is quite a heavy wooden thing, and they then dragged out the dustbins and basically made an enormous mess. Pretty warm. Temperature's not that cold for winter, but what happens with our weather systems seems to be that when there is a hyena there, yeah? See if you can spot him there, and then we'll move a bit closer. There's a young hyena at the den. I've managed to park him right behind. There we go. Isn't that lovely? That's a youngster. So I'm just going to approach quite slowly. Approach quite slowly just to make sure there are a few of them there. That's wonderful. Ah, great stuff. Just approach slowly so that they don't panic and rush off and disappear into the hole that is in that termite mound. Oh, there's a whole lot going on there. There's an adult, 2 adults, and 3 cubs. very inquisitive. Stop here to stop. Okay, Via? That's great. I'm just going to contact Brent quickly. Go ahead, Brent. Oh, this is just so special. Probably the same at the hyena den. Affirmative. Isn't it wonderful how they're so close to the front of the vehicle we can't even see them? So these little things are, I'm not sure how old they are, but they look to me to be about 3 or 4 months old. Can't. So they scuttled off when I moved. And the danger here is that they'll pull the oil cap off the wheel. Now that little tail sticking up like that is a sort of an indication of a bit of alarm. Very inquisitive, and they lose this inquisitiveness when they become adults, but not the confidence. They do remain very confident. And that running away, they've just noticed Via moving on the back, and that's why they're running off. Oi. I don't want him to remove the oil cap. Good morning. Hello, little fellow. I suspect, now, hyenas are very difficult to sex, or spotted hyenas are. Oh, look at that picture. But because there are 3 youngsters here, I suspect that there are some males amongst them. If there were only females, there would have been probably siblicide. The females, if they're born together as twins, they're normally only 2 born, so it's quite unusual that there are 3 here, and they look to be the same age. 2 females, 1 female will definitely kill the other. They normally then take over as the matriarch of the clan. So I suspect one of these 2 is a young male, and one is a female. What are you chaps doing on that side? As soon as they feel me moving, they go run about. So the Land Rover's got a little oil cap on the edge of the wheel, and young hyenas like this seem to home in on it and pull it off. Let's play with a stick rather. Oi! Didn't like my clicking noise. That's interesting there. Maybe just trying to see what that little cub is trying to do there. So you can see the one suckling, and the other one, the one that was removing our oil cap, is now playing with that other adult. I wonder if anyone can tell me, if any of the viewers know when these 2 were born, because it looks to me, now that I look at them, that the one suckling is possibly younger than these other 2. And that might be their mother that they're playing with now. Oh, he's just taken the oil cap off. Lisa, thank you very much for your information. You said that they are 4 months old. Oi. Oi. He's about to pull the wheel off. Carol, go on. He's just homing in on that cap. Now there, now he's giving himself a fright. So, Lisa, thank you for that information, there being 4 months. Do you have any idea if there were 3 in the litter, which is quite a lot for hyena, or if there were 2? Right, thanks very much for that, Lisa. So, as I suspected, these 2 that are busy trying to tear the Land Rover apart are siblings, and the one with the other female there that we saw suckling is slightly younger. So, I'm going to postulate that these 2 that we're looking at now, horsing about the place, or hyenaing about the place, are one are brother and sister, or 2 males. They will not be, it's highly unlikely that they'd be 2 females. And the fact that the other one is on its own indicates that it may well be a female, and that it could have engaged in siblicide. It's unusual for them to only have 1 baby. So I suspect that some fate has befallen the siblings of that one. Like I say, if there are 2 females, they exhibit something called canism or siblicide, and canism comes from Cain and Abel. Hello, Tim in Arkansas. Nice question there. Thank you. You can see, you've obviously noticed that the adults are not reacting to them coming so close to us. And that is absolutely as you surmise, because they don't, they don't see us as a threat. But on foot it would be very different. So they don't associate the vehicle with a threat, Tim, but they do associate us on foot with a threat. So they wouldn't, if we arrived here, if we walked up here, the babies would probably disappear down the burrow. I suspect the adults would probably go off into the bush. If we then looked like we were going to try and get into the burrow, the adults may become a little angry and perhaps aggressive, but normally they'd all just run away if we came here on foot. They just don't associate anything with the vehicle, any danger with the vehicle. And especially after an interaction like this, you can imagine when these cubs grow up, they will be just as relaxed as the adults are. Isn't it wonderful seeing them play like this? Children's play, just like animal play, is such an important part of gaining strength and gaining coordination and fitness and gaining muscle mass. Hello, Safari. You are worried about one of the cubs' feet being swollen. I haven't seen any that are swollen. The hyena do tend to have a rather bow-legged appearance. These 2 cubs looking fine fettle to me. Now we can see that little one there, much smaller. And now also coming to have a quick look. Not quite as confident. And here comes an adult. They will bully each other, and that tail up is a sign of kind of, not alarm, but definitely sort of tension, which is quite fun. This is wonderful. I've tried so often to come to this den, and I've never seen them behaving like this. It's fantastic. Hyenas are such great value. One of the most misunderstood animals in Africa. Look at this. The adult hasn't sensed something coming up, and you'll notice that the first thing the youngster do is run for the burrow. But obviously they're not too concerned. So, look at that. Just look at those two there. Those two are a different age. And the little one, there is clearly younger now. You can see them beautifully framed there by Viam, who's doing his best to crane the camera over the side. Brenda and Virginia, you say one of them is a year old. I'm assuming you mean one of the bigger ones here. Certainly the cubs that we're looking at here are nowhere near a year old. It's possible that one of the adult-looking ones is about a year old, except that I'm pretty sure that they're both mothers. One the mother of the two, and the other the mother of the one. So, Brenda, if you've seen cubs sort of a year ago, I don't think that they are here. They still may well be part of the same clan, but they won't necessarily hang around the den. They'll be out foraging for most of the night and into the morning. So in my humble opinion, I wouldn't say that there are any year-old cubs here now. But definitely two mothers and two litters, which is a huge distinction between wild dogs and wolves and hyenas, for example. Only the alpha pair in a dog pack will breed. Gilly in Wisconsin, you ask a great question. Why do I think that Mother Nature made hyenas' backs so sloping? Well, Gilly, try and think of an antelope that has the same look. And your answer will sort of be apparent from that. They are sloping like that because it is an adaptation, much like a wildebeest, for long distance running. So they can go huge distances. Got one coming up here, having a look at my hand, which is hanging over the edge. You can't even see him. You get in there, Viam? No. He's right round the front. Sorry, Gilly. And the adaptation is that the sacrifice speed, so they're not nearly as fast as something like a leopard or perhaps even a wild dog. They are much bigger than wild dogs. But what it means is that they can run and run and run and run without getting tired. They get into that sort of loping canter, and they can go for ages, probably much more than any other predator can. And that's a great adaptation if you want to scavenge. And indeed, some of the research into our own origins suggests that we gained this upright stance because we're actually excellent scavengers rather than hunters. We're not very fast compared to the animals out here, but we can move long distances. Herring around. So the adults look to be moving along. I'm not sure. They're all behind us. Well, the two of them are behind us, walking away. And so I don't think these little ones are going to be out for much longer, but we're going to wait until they disappear. They're such excellent entertainment. So Gilly, in summary, an adaptation for long-distance running. Just think of a wildebeest and the distances they have to cover in places like the Serengeti or the Mara, and you have a sort of idea of similar design. In fact, all the antelope that migrate big distances will generally have large forequarters and small hindquarters. Sabira Zumi, thank you for your question. You want to know, do we ever name clans of hyenas? Sometimes. I've never done it. I'm not a huge fan of naming at all, but I'm perfectly happy to accept that others like to do it. So in some areas, I've definitely heard of people naming clans, so they'll probably name them after an area. So this would be, let's pretend we're on a road called Philemon's Cutline, so this could be Philemon's clan, for example, and there's certainly some areas where we do that. Here, not so much. I suppose it's because we don't spend nearly as much time with them as we do with the leopards or the lions, and so because they don't have that sort of iconic status, we tend not to know exactly the individual. So, for example, all of you who watch regularly are able to identify those leopards from that we see regularly from 100 different markings they have. I mean, you're far better at identifying them than I am. And likewise with the lions. When I first got here, the first lion pride I saw, I said to you all, I didn't know who they were, and you gave me the exact pride breakdown, and you told me who had cubs when, and which restaurants they'd been to last night, and that sort of level of detail was quite astonishing. And so with the hyenas, we tend not to spend as much time with them. They're not, we're sitting here and they're being particularly confiding, but they tend not to hang around in a group like a lion pride does. So they're a little more complicated to assess in terms of their social dynamics. So, for example, I couldn't tell you how big this clan was, and I'm willing to bet that despite all the knowledge that our regular viewers have, they probably also couldn't tell you how big the clan was. So we know how old these cubs are, but we don't know how many adults there are in the clan. So, yeah, it's an interesting question. I wonder if we shouldn't try and spend more time habituating them and following them more than we do. But, yeah, I don't know. Just going to wait here for a little while and see if they don't come out again. Hi, Billy in California. Another lovely hyena question. I'm going to answer it while we wait for them to come out. If we drive around, I think they definitely won't come out. The adults have just left, so I don't think they're going to do too much more, but they might like to play with us a little bit longer. So while I answer your question, we'll wait. Billy, you want to know, do the males have any sort of part in child rearing? Do they mate and then just leave, or what do they do? In hyena society, spotted hyena society, it's really quite interesting. The males are smaller than the females, so they don't dominate at all. And that's the only mammal that I know of in this area where that situation pervades. So the males will mate with the females, and they're much smaller than the females, and they'll remain within the clan. And the clan, the clan is a fairly solid social structure, but it's not always together, like I said, like the lions. So they will have very little to do with the cubs at all. Who the fathers are, we have absolutely no idea. I mean, it could be anyone from within the clan. The matriarch will choose who she wants to mate with, and indeed, I mean, only one of these can be the matriarch, so one of the others is probably a secondary or lower ranking female, and who they mated with, we have no idea. Unlike, say, a lion pride, where the dominating males, you know who they are. Tend to be almost forgotten in some instances, not by our loyal viewers who tend to love everything from the fruit chafers up to the elephants, but certainly in that and this sort of aura that's been created around the big five, things like hyena have been neglected. They're fascinating. They're the second, I mean, they're far more, excuse me, they are far more dominant as a predator than leopards or wild dogs or cheetah, and yet we tend to kind of, yeah, if we can see them, we see them, and it's quite fun, but we don't pay a huge amount of attention to finding them. And I think, given the sort of negative rap that hunting's getting these days, we should be dispensing with the term big five and perhaps moving on to something like high-profile game, which is that's just sort of the exciting stuff to see. And hyenas must be part of that, as must hippo, as must giraffe. I mean, giraffe are the most fascinating animals. Right, I'm not going to trouble these chaps any further, and I think we'll probably press on from here, see what is going on. I think Brent is on some leopard tracks, so we'll probably leave them and see if we can't find some lions. Christy in Oklahoma, I think we've given you a misrepresentation because you can't quite get the perspective we have. You've said, why did the youngster go with the adults? All three youngsters actually went into the den. One of them came round from the side and in, so we couldn't pick that up on the camera. So the youngsters are all here. Just have a quick drive around here, but I suspect they'll be inside. Wesley, a fascinating question. You want to know, why are very young hyena cubs, why are they black in color? Just watch your head here, Björn. I think that they are black, Wesley, because it helps them to be less obvious when they're little, because they're more in and around they're more in the den and in the hole. And if any predator that comes and sticks their noses into the hole, I'll just get into a position where you can see the hole. Any predator that comes and sticks its nose into the hole is unlikely to be able to see them. They'll be active at night far more than they are during the day. And then as they come out of the hole and start to spend more and more time outside, that spotted color and spotted sort of pelage is much more effective as they start to move into the grass and into the vegetation, and it just helps with the dappled light. So the darker the animal is, they spend more time in the holes, and I think it's there's just a better coloration to be when you're on the edge of the hole of the den. It kind of mirrors that color, especially as any predator that comes through here for a hyena, and that would only be a lion or an extremely brave leopard and maybe a big pack of wild dogs, they see in black and white. And so that black color against the black background of a termite mound hole will be quite difficult to see. So that would be my guess, Wesley. Happy to take some debate on it, though, if you think that there might be another explanation. Thanks very much. Hello, Jim. As I read the other day, a good question is one without a simple answer. And yours falls into that category, as do so many of the questions we've had today. you want to know, do hyenas see in color? And the answer is no, not really. But I think it's a continuum. It's not necessarily like flicking the color off on your TV and the whole picture goes black and white. So there are two different kinds of cells in the eye, as far as I understand it. One called rods and one called cones, and one is responsible for seeing light, and the other is responsible for seeing color. And I'm just going to stop here while I explain this. And what happens is that the color, apparently the more cones you have, and I think the cones see color, if I might have it mixed up, but if I don't, the more cones you have, the fewer rods you can have. And the more color you have, the less, the smaller your ability to see or to differentiate light and dark is. So animals that see at night, or who have good nocturnal eyesight, will see, or the better your nocturnal eyesight, the less you will see in color, as far as I understand it. So the better your color vision, the worse your night vision. So we as human beings have terrible night vision compared with the cats. And some birds also have appalling night vision. So the most colorful birds obviously have to be able to see in color. And I've watched them try and land at night. And it's extremely difficult for a bird that is not nocturnal to land effectively and perch in the night time. So that's why we try and stop. We try not to disturb them in the trees at night, because if they take off, they do find it difficult to land. And I noticed that first, actually, with a friend of mine had a cockatiel that didn't like live in a cage. And at night, if it was startled, it would fly around and around and around and not be able to land until you turned the light on. So, in summary, the worse your ability to see at night, the better your color vision. But it's a continuum. It's not a question of being either black and white in color. So they'll see some color, I'm sure, but they won't see color anything like you and I see color. Edward, you want to know if mange ever troubles hyenas? I don't know a huge amount about mange. It definitely does affect some animals out here. I'm assuming it would affect hyenas. I'm also assuming that there are probably various different kinds of it that you get out here. I've definitely seen kudu seem to be the most poorly affected by what is probably a wide range of diseases that we loosely term mange. I've seen some hyenas that look pretty mangy. Whether they have one of those diseases or not, I'm not sure. But yes, I would imagine a hyena that was immunocompromised or was very stressed could well develop some sort of mange. Heather, you want to know, do these hyenas look so dirty, you said, and do they ever go off to the dam and have a swim and clean off? Well, I've got to tell you, most of the dams here would make them dirtier than they are now. No, hyena are much less fastidious about being clean than the cats, or probably even the wild dogs. So they often have a very grubby appearance, and they don't tend to swim or bath too much. And if they do go to the water, they tend to lie in the mud and get even dirtier. So the plan from here is to go onto the southern boundary and just hope against hope that maybe a lion has popped on. So Georgianne and Rave have asked two interesting questions that sort of dovetail into each other. So I'm going to ask them both. at least answer them both in sort of one. Georgianne reckons that she's read that the lowest ranking female in a hyena clan is still higher ranking than the highest ranking male. Georgianne, I would say as far as the adults go, that is true, because it's simply about size and strength. Out here it tends to be, you might have a business executive who's 5'6" and just very clever. Here your brain has got much less to do with how big you are, especially if you're not a primate. So because the females are bigger, that is going to be absolutely true. Now, leading on from that is Rave's question about what we call a pseudo-penis. Now, the pseudo-penis in the hyena, and spotted hyena, it's only the spotted hyena that has this, is a result apparently of, and it's not very well understood, but it's a result apparently of the females have more testosterone in them than the males, and something at birth, or during the not at birth, but during the development process, that level of testosterone causes the clitoris to enlarge to this enormous pseudo-penis, and its major role is in greeting. So the female hyenas will actually give birth through the pseudo-penis. They will mate through it, but it doesn't. The only time you see it, or the only time it's ever extended, is during greeting, not during mating at all. So it's difficult to actually, and that's what makes it difficult to tell male from female if you don't see the smaller males with the females. What advantage it confers on them is difficult to say, and I'm not sure that I have an answer for that. Safe to say that because of the extra testosterone, and much might be a byproduct of that, and it has now become the organ that they use to greet each other. That's led to any number of awkward conversations on game drives with children, because parents tend to defer to the ranger to leave us to answer the questions. I'm going to defer to you parents out there to answer that for your own kids. Hello, Crystal in Texas. Another nice one. We were having a flood of excellent questions today. You want to know what's the relationship between hyenas and wild dogs? And I think you don't mean sort of genetically. I think mainly you mean in terms of their relationship in the predator hierarchy, and will they steal from each other? So just to clarify for those who perhaps don't know, the sort of overarching order that all of the predators here belong to is called Carnivora. Then there's a suborder called Caniformi, to which the dog-like ones belong, and there's one called Feliformi, to which the cat-like ones belong. Now, to those who don't know, the hyena belong to the Feliformi. They belong to the same suborder as all the cats do, and wild dogs, Caniformi, to the order that the dogs belong to. So they're not related at all. But just, Crystal, I think your question has more to do with the predator hierarchy, and the predator hierarchy out here indicates that first we've got lions on top. There's never a question about that. Then underneath that you will have the spotted hyena, and below that will be the wild dog. Now that order between the hyenas and the dogs and the lions, to a certain extent, can change dependent on number. So if you've got a whole lot of hyena, or a small clan of hyena and a whole lot of wild dogs, what you'll find is that the dogs will dominate the hyenas, and they will steal kills, and they'll be able to chase hyenas off their own kills. But if you've got sufficient numbers of hyenas, and it's normally in a ratio of about 2 to 1, so if you've got fewer than 2 dogs to 1 hyena, the hyenas will be able to chase the dogs off their kills, and they often do follow dogs and try and chase them off their kills. So I hope that answers your question. There's no way that dogs or wild dogs will ever dominate lions, though. Not even one lion. Well, maybe one, but very unusual. just got a question from Brent here. I'm just going to answer him. Go ahead, Brent. I took the road to Chelapan. I'm now in Trinidad. Copy that. Do you want me to check somewhere? Okay, copy that. So, our brave pal Brent has managed to find a leopard on foot, but it seems to have evaded him trying to find it in the vehicle. So that's what he's trying to do now. We're going to drive fairly slowly around this area just to make sure that we don't come up with any tracks that he might be looking for, like the ones, no, those are hyenas there. Hello Jim, you want to know, nice question. I like these ones that make me think, or try and make me think in the cold morning, warm up my brain. You want to know, without claws like lions have, how do wild dogs and hyenas bring down their prey? The answer is with their teeth. And that's not a facetious answer at all. Their claws, they don't use their claws so much because by the time they catch their prey, they've usually run them down to a state of fair exhaustion. And so they're not pouncers that sort of overpower and then bring their prey down. And they tend to run after them and harry them until they're so exhausted that they almost collapse. And it's actually a much lower risk strategy than that of, say, a lion. Lions get injured quite a lot through their hunting technique because they leap on the back. They leap onto the backs of animals and they can get quite badly injured. Right, we're going to cross over to Brent, see how he's doing. I'm not sure if he's managed to relocate the leopard, but we'll see you a little bit later.
Good morning, everyone. I know James has told you, I'm so excited. Sorry, my name's Brent. I got Andrew on camera with me. We're on a live safari. Just a quick update what I've been up to since we got going. We're following leopard tracks, and they were up and down in the area around Treehouse Dam, and I was convinced that the leopard was in the area. So I jumped off the vehicle and I tracked, and I managed to spot him from about 50 meters away. Unfortunately, he's in this really, really thick little drainage line, and we haven't been able to get a vehicle in there, and I think he might have moved off a little bit, so I'm just doing a loop around the block, but fingers crossed, hopefully we can find it. I wasn't able to see which leopard it was on foot, so I am secretly hoping it might be Kunyuma, but we never know. So I'm going to keep checking around and see what we can find. So welcome, and hopefully we have some leopard luck shortly.
Morning, Tax. I managed to look like one photo anywhere on Inyao, just to the west of Treehouse Dam. Busy trying to relocate them over at the moment. Copy, thanks, Tax. Tax, if you can check Philemon's dip. I think we might have crossed Savage's track into that block there, just to make sure he hasn't come out that side.
So what we're doing is I'm hoping he's popped out onto one of the roads. I'm checking tracks, and I've just got Taxon who's just getting moving. He is going to come give us a hand in this area, so he can cover that northern side. That gives us a much better chance of finding this animal. So if you are a new viewer, welcome. We are tracking leopards live at Djuma Private Game Reserve. You are able to ask me questions about what we're doing and what we see in the bush. You can do this by emailing us, questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Come on, kitty cats. So if you're new, you'll often see my head disappear off the vehicle, and when I do that, I'm looking for the footprints of the animals. So that helps us find them, and tracking cats is one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world. It's always such an amazing experience being able to find an animal like a leopard on foot, and especially from following its footprints, not sort of just bumping into it. It's a almost otherworldly experience for me personally. Hi, Gail from Calgary. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Gail. Gail would like to know if I've ever had to sleep out in the bush unplanned, and if so, do I have any advice? Gail, unfortunately, I have quite a few times. The best advice is normally to do with vehicle issues, and in places like northern Botswana and southern Tanzania, it's a little bit different from here. You're not surrounded by so many people. Your one concession can be the same size as 4 of the whole Sabi Sands, and you were the only people in it. So the general rule is, most important thing, depending on what time of the day it is, if it's in the late afternoon or early evening, first important rule is stay with the car. Don't try walk at night. You will become a snack, possibly for a cat, or walk into a hippo or elephant while you can't see, or buffalo for that matter. First rule is stay with the car. Secondly, the most important thing is always carry some extra water in your vehicle, and that can come in very handy, especially in places like Botswana. The aardvark's just getting rid of some of the dust. Water is probably the most important commodity. I've had to drink out of a body of water that's a very similar state to the water here in the dry season. So I think you're mostly drinking elephant urine, but it keeps you going to the next decent water. Okay. So we saw the leopard down here in the thickets around that large jackalberry. So I was walking from the dam up the drainage line, and we're just going to loop around, make sure I can't find any tracks coming out, and if that's the case, we're going to go do a bit of bundu bashing, see if he hasn't just snuck off and laid down somewhere close by. And then, Gail, just to end off on your question there, and obviously very important, most important is water. Even if you do have to drink elephant urine and buffalo urine out of a pan, that water is what will keep you alive. So food's not nearly as important as water. You can happily go a week without food, but you won't last a day in some of those areas without water. Hi Marianne from North Carolina. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Marianne. Just give me a sec, Marianne. I got to chat on the Game Drive channel for a second. Go ahead. Not yet, Tex. I've just checked Treehouse Dam Road. I'm going to go back into the block now to where I last had visual. James was there earlier. It was active earlier, but I don't think it's active anymore. But you're more than welcome to check. I was fumbling sort of north. I can't find the Nkonzo crossing Savages track, but I think maybe just check Savages track again and I'll go into the block. Philemon's Catland side. There, just to let you know, there's lots of Nkonzo up and down here on the Ndlela, but I haven't found any crossing straight north across Savages. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm just chatting to Tax, who's checking the other side to make sure the leopard hasn't done a sneaky puff at her and disappeared out that side. So Marianne would like to know, aren't we at risk in an open vehicle like this? Why won't the big cats come in and take us out? Marianne, it's actually quite an interesting discussion about that, which I'll get to in a second. Just to let you guys know, this is where I left the aardvark up on the road there, and I followed the tracks down this game path and then up onto this game path here, and sort of as I came around the corner I picked up a little movement. I just saw the white of the leopard's tail, and I was about here when I spotted the leopard, and the leopard was I'm just also going to listen as well for a second. And the leopard was probably there at that first set of trees that you can see there now. So probably about 50 meters. Sorry, I'm just going to get back on the Game Drive channel. Standing by, Andrew. Sorry, go again. Andrew, please go again with your message. Okay, copy, thanks. Yeah, just let you know, I found a Ingwe on in Nyao. I'm just trying to relocate at the moment now. So this is where he was. He moved off through here. So I'm hoping that maybe we've done the loop around, that he's lying in a thicket here somewhere. He was just hiding from me while I was on foot. So Marianne, back to your questions. I'm just going to take a gander and check behind this termite mound. You never know. Even though when I saw the leopard he was moving off this way, I'm going to just check around the back of this termite mound. So Marianne was wondering about why we don't get to man during the day, and at night is very different. At night the animals are quite bold, specifically lions, and we form part of their natural prey at night time. But during the day we are dominant over lions, and they will normally run away from you when you walk into them. And the same goes for leopards. So when I managed to find this leopard, he would just try to sneak away without me seeing him, rather than attacking me. Sometimes when you surprise each other at close range, you can get a warning charge. There's no such thing as a mock charge. The animal is warning you that you are too close. Really hoping to be hiding under one of these bushes. Just checking carefully under any little bit of cover. So as I was saying about the warning charge, there's no such thing as a mock charge. But generally they will move away from you during the day. And that means if you're an experienced, and also very important things like you never run or do stuff like that. If you run, it can incite an animal's instinct to chase and charge, but that's on foot. Now if we go onto the vehicles, it's a very different thing. A vehicle's only been around for just over 100 years, and animals do not have an instinctive response to vehicles. So if you've taught them basically by driving respectfully, not threatening them, don't drive straight at them. Listen for a second while we finish off this question, in case we hear an alarm call of some kind. So while we're in the vehicle, the animals have sort of learnt, and a vehicle doesn't pose a threat to them. It also doesn't smell like anything edible. It smells like petrol and oil, and even humans. What you got there? Well, humans to a degree don't smell what an animal would instinctively think humans to smell like. We smell like soap and deodorant and washing powder and all sorts of strange things like that. Just excuse me for a second, I've got chat to text. How's it for? No thanks for. I saw him next to this jackalberry here, and he was moving this way, but now there's Munti there. When I found now. And this is my Chimba block. You can, I've tried it once, but maybe again, might have moved that way. I'm going to keep trying to go through the block here. I'll go try zigzag up to Shibam. Alright, thanks Tex. Sorry about that. So, just there goes. Tex is going to go check around where we've just checked, because we're quite certain that this leopard's here. And that animal Andrew just showed you was a little duiker, one of the favorite foods of leopard. But it is quite possible the leopard's still lying here very close by and hasn't spotted the duiker, or the duiker hasn't spotted the leopard yet. But sorry, back to end up on that story about why we don't get attacked in the vehicles. So the vehicles don't smell like anything, and because we drive respectfully and treat and carefully around the animals, they don't have a negative connotation with vehicles. In other places where they have been pushed and stressed by vehicles, they can sometimes develop a negative connotation, which either means they run away or try warning charge or even full charge. But one of the most amazing things about that is if I were to stand up in a big cat or even elephant sighting or even next to a zebra and I gave that sort of bipedal upright figure of man, they would instinctively recognize that, and that can cause them to run away or it can cause them to become aggressive, neither of which we want. So as long as we're careful and respectful in the vehicles, we shouldn't have big cats climbing in to claw us out. It has happened in the past, but it's in other places and that, but that is generally human error and not animal error. Morning, Patricia from San Diego. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Patricia, we're just gonna edge on a little bit, see if we can find this leopard. Patricia would like to know a little bit more about what it's like to track on foot. Well, Patricia, it is for me one of the best things to do in the bush, specifically tracking sort of big cats. It's always a little heightened excitement. Fortunately for me, I've been doing this. I think the first time I walked into a lion, I must have been about 10 years old with my dad. So I've had a lot of teachers over the years, including trackers, other guides, my dad, my grandfather, who have taught me how to behave in those situations. I know this might sound a little bit strange to a lot of you out there, but I don't think I ever feel more alive than when I'm charged by a big male lion. It's an amazing experience, and they generally stop, but they can stop as close as sort of 3 or 4 meters. And I like when I'm by myself, not when I've got the responsibility for other people. When I'm by myself, I choose not to walk with a firearm. And it's a very old philosophy, simple philosophy of my dad's. If you're not comfortable walking there without a firearm, you should never walk there with a firearm. It gives you a false sense of security. You should rely on your experience and knowledge to be able to get out of those potentially dangerous situations. But it is, if all your senses are heightened, you listen a lot more carefully. Your eyes are flicking under bushes, just checking everything a lot more carefully. You smell everything. You're sort of a much more heightened sense of awareness. So, for example, as soon as I get off the vehicle track on foot, I'll take a beanie off. I just don't want anything around my ears. I want to be able to hear everything that's around me. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think the best way to explain it. You're definitely more at one with your surroundings and nature than you are in a vehicle. You're never going to be able to have the fantastic sightings we do on foot from the point of view that most animals will run away from you on foot. Whether it's in a vehicle, you can approach them very closely, and that's because they don't have that instinctive response. But for me, it's sort of, I'm more connected to the ground, and it's a very special feeling for me. And strangely enough, I actually prefer walking by myself most of the time than with people, for a couple of reasons. It's sort of my little special time that I get by myself out in the bush, and also it means I don't have to worry about making sure other people are safe. I trust my instincts and judgment on foot in the bush, so it's always difficult when you have to worry about someone else, you definitely move differently through the bush when you've got people with you to when you're by yourself. I hope that gives you a little idea, Patricia, about tracking on foot. Now let's hopefully we can find this leopard again. So while the aardvark and I scour this block between, it's actually more of a triangle between these roads, we're going to cross back to Commander Bond and see what he's been up to, and hopefully when we get back we would have managed to find this leopard.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga. We've come to the far eastern boundary of the reserve. I believe Brent is currently harrying the bush in his attempts to find the leopard, and if anyone's going to find it, it's him. So I think it's best to leave him be for a little while. We've stopped here, Viam and I, because there were a whole lot of squirrels on this knobthorn tree. Excuse the frog in my throat. And the squirrels have disappeared into their little hole, which is extremely unkind of them. But all along this cut line we found knobthorn trees like this with squirrels. They're obviously, you can see there where the elephant has torn off the bark, and what that does is open the wood up to wood borer beetles, makes it easier for things like woodpeckers to drill holes in it. And once the wood borers get in and the woodpeckers have drilled a couple of holes, the fungus and bacteria and other pathogens can get in there and eat away at the heartwood, and then there are lovely little spots for things like squirrels to go and live, the odd snake of course, but squirrels and snakes won't live together. And the hole is just where Viam is now framing the fork of the tree there, and so the knobthorns seem to be the ideal sort of tree for squirrels because of that, the property of the heartwood to give way to pathogens. Doesn't happen so much with marula trees. They tend to heal a lot better than these knobthorns do. It's always amazed me how brilliant a marula tree is at recovering from elephant damage compared to the knobthorn. Can we just look at the marula tree to the side, to the right-hand side of that knobthorn tree? Now, that tree there has been mangled. If you look at it, it's been broken once, twice, 3, 4, say 6 or 7 times. It's been torn to pieces by elephants, and yet it has managed to heal every single time. I mean, that thing, that is the scraggliest marula tree I've ever seen, but it's managed to recover somehow as from the elephant damage. Now, the knobthorn just doesn't manage to do that. As soon as you push them over, they die. Or you can ring bark them pretty easily because the bark comes off in these huge strips. So I suspect that's why you don't find squirrels living in marula trees quite as much as you do in the knobthorns, because the knobthorns tend to not recover quite so well. Right, so while I've been yakking on about squirrels, we haven't actually seen any, so I think we'll get a press on from here and see if we can't find something else magnificent to show you on this rather magnificent morning. The other advantage of being where we are, of course, is that we're quite high up. Right, we're going straight back to Brent because he's managed to find the leopard. I told you he would. Enjoy it, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Perseverance pays off. Thanks to the eyes of the aardvark, while I was getting out of the car and fiddling with my earpiece and stuff to go off and check the tracks, Andrew went, leopard, leopard, leopard! I literally nearly stood on his tail as I got out of the vehicle. We found him now. I'm not 100% sure which leopard it is. He looks like quite a big male, so we're going to have a quick look. So please, could you guys try ID him for me? Let me know which leopard this is. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to say just yet. He's unfortunately lying in a bit of a thicket. But my heart rate definitely jumped up a 2, and I had a beat of 2, and I had a leopard about 2 meters from me. Sorry guys, I just need to get on the game drive radio to get tax in here. In between the two shkovas,
Best access I think will be off Savage's track. Copy. So isn't this fantastic? Nothing better than following through with tracking on foot to getting you guys a sighting. Hopefully we're going to move a little bit just now. I'm just letting him. I'm not sure which leopard it is, so I didn't want to move too much once we found him. Just to make sure he's not an unrelaxed leopard. We don't know, which is always possible because we are in an open system of over 8 million acres. So strange things do happen. But I think this is probably one of the leopards that is more relaxed. Just judging from the way he reacted when he was 2 meters from me. He didn't run off in an absolute panic. He sort of calmly skulked away from us. But really exciting. My heartbeat's definitely going, and I think the Art Fox is as well.
It's going.
So awesome. I'm not sure who he is, as I said now. It looked like quite a big male, but I'm not so convinced at the moment. I'm trying to see if I can see any distinguishing features that I can recognize. I'm just going to try and move the vehicle a little. Let's see if we can get a better view. He is lying in a bit of a difficult spot. How's that for camouflage? No wonder I didn't see him when I jumped off the car. Let's try to see if we can get away through there. Oh, there we go. I think that's going to be our best option. I'm going to have to go. So we're just going to have to go a little bit further away from him. If I went through that other gap, I might lose Andrew to a buffalo thorn, and he'll be very upset with me. Watch out. Another buffalo thorn stalking you. Looks like he's on the move again. Of course, just to exactly where we came from. So I'll try to stay with him. I'm not sure if he's definitely not sure who he is just yet, so if any of you guys manage to get some distinguishing features on this leopard, I'd really appreciate it. And remember, you can send those through to questions at WildEarth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So I'm looking at he's not moving, so he's paying little attention to the vehicle. He's just keeping still and listening now. Can just see him over the front. I don't want to push any closer through this bush, so I don't want to give him a fright. So he's just there off the front of our vehicle, probably about 8-9 feet. There he goes, moving again. So you can see there, as he turned his head, there was quite a big dewlap. Jody and Lisa all say possibly Tingana, and I would have to agree with you. That was my initial guess. He is moving through a terrible block at the moment. We're just going to keep slowly trying to keep with him. Takes no mobile south. I think it's Tingana. still think best access is from Savages, but he is moving towards Shabam, but quite slowly. But this is very thick bush here. Okay. Do you hear Texas? Yeah, it looks like he's Lalapanzi again. So keep coming. I'm gonna, if you switch off, you'll hear my audio moving now to try get into position to get a bit of view. So we've definitely had some bit of feedback in the Twitter sphere that isn't Tingana the expert aardvark killer? Shouldn't Andrew be a little bit worried sitting on the back? And congratulations to Andrew for being an expert leopard spotter. And I have a little jump over this dead log. Oop, wow. And it looks like thankfully he's decided to lie up in a far more open area than he was before. I'm just gonna move around. I'm not sure whether, now having second doubt whether it's Tingana. For me his face isn't pale enough, but now that we've got him out in the open, maybe we can have a better look. Maybe it just looks a little bit younger to me. Just from that side profile there. I'm going to try and get some spot patterns. And I do... Let me just help Tex get in. Tex, if you come towards that Shadulu, it's the most open. Still trying to figure out who it is. As I said, I'm not 100% convinced it's Tingana anymore. I just saw that big dewlap, but he does look a little bit younger. But then again, I might be wrong. Having a look now. Now that he's turned his face. I'm just checking the spot patterns on a photo I took a while ago. And yeah, it is definitely Tingana. So, and now this is very much deep within Mbula's territory. Very deep within Mbula's territory, in fact. We're around Treehouse Dam. And this is the furthest sort of east I've seen Tingana so far. So Blair, well done. You and I seem to be on the same track this morning, wondering whether he is in Mbula's traditional territory. No problem, Tex. Actually, I stopped to walk again.
Yeah.
I got out of the car and he was next to me. So it looks like he's quite well fed at the moment. And then I know James and I had this discussion on the fireside chat on Sunday that we think Impala may be a little bit older, but it's very difficult to say than the 10 years old. I mean, here we've got a 9-year-old leopard. Again, almost impossible to say unless we'd spent 9 years with the animal, but looks in better condition, more prime than Impala, and there isn't much age gap according to the information we have between them. Well, morning Ellen, and thanks very much. Ellen says one of his ID traits is small vertical slashes in the spot pattern above his right eye. And he's got a really distinct spot pattern as well that we normally look at, which is the last line above the whiskers. And he has got very distinct. He's a 4-5, which is quite a lot of spots for that top whisker. Sorry, a 5-4, right side first, 5-4. We'll show you a bit later, but let's look at him now. And so quite interesting, on Juma in the last 24 hours we've seen both big male leopards. James had a Impala around Buffalo's Hook Dam yesterday, and now we've got Tingana here at Treehouse Dam. And for me, this is the furthest east I've ever seen this leopard. But Tax, who's been here a lot longer than me, I'm just going to ask him if he's ever seen him further than this. Never. Impala's in trouble. Yeah. So also Tax, who's been here for how many years now, Phil? 8 years. Has never seen Tingana this far east. So really interesting stuff that's happening with the leopard dynamics at the moment. It could be a changing of the guards. So actually quite exciting for me. This is the first time I've actually walked Tingana on foot. I've walked the other leopards quite a few times, but this is the first time I've tracked and found Tingana on foot. So that's really, really cool for me. Morning, Edward. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Edward would like to know if there's any reason why the animals don't respond to our voices. Well, Edward, you must remember in this part of the world, the animals have grown up with the vehicles from when they were very small, and many years ago a very long and concerted effort was taken to habituate the leopards and lions, and also because it's coming out of context, and also from that evolutionary fact, instinctually, when humans, when we lived on the African savannas, would come across a big predator, there'd be a lot of shouting and screaming and threatening sounds, whether it's at the moment, now we keep our voices low and calm, and that's another reason. If we had to start screaming or shouting in high-pitched voices, there would definitely be a reaction from the leopard, whether it be either to run away or to possibly come have a closer look because there's possibly animal in distress. Well, it looks like he's on the move. And this is going to wander right past Tax's vehicle. Peggy would like to know if I saw whether he had any blood on his neck from eating. Peggy, I didn't. I did see some sort of little blood splotches on his neck, but I think that was more from a scratch, and he might have popped a few ticks while he was scratching his neck. That's what it looked like to me. So he's walked directly behind Tax, so at the moment we're all stuck. So we're going to take this opportunity to try and get some of the dust off the lens while we move. So he's right behind Tax's vehicle, and as soon as we get the chance we will be following on. Let's see if we can find the gap. Aardvark, watch out for the buffalo torch. Watch out there, this is one of the worst. Watch out there, this is one of the worst thorn trees. Thank you. Didn't see where he went because he went straight. Tax would have had a better idea which way he went. So I'm just trying to see where he is. Oh, I got him. Yo, he's moved quite far. He's gone down towards that jackalberry in front of us. So I'm just going to try to find a way there. I just could see the spot of his tail. So I'm just trying to not get Aardvark and I caught in thorn bushes and not get the car stuck either. It's just moved into the shade, yeah. Just going to make sure I can leave enough space for Tax as well. Sorry, I need to just try to reach in a slightly better position. How's that? So we have a theory from Siberia, Alzumi. Siberia thinks that maybe he is the father of Karula's current litter. I'm not sure whether Karula has a litter at the moment. I haven't seen her for some time, so I'm not quite prepared to start guessing whether she's given birth to cubs or not yet. But the next part of the theory is that he is busy pushing Impala out of the territory. With that, I agree with you 110%, and that's because he's facing pressure from a new male that's coming in from the sort of southwest, a male leopard by the name of the Anderson male. It's come from Ottawa and is pushing him out of his traditional territory, and that male leopard could be a bit younger. I'm not sure, I don't know much about the Anderson male just yet. I'd love to see him though. And so obviously he feels that it's a more viable for him to push Impala, who's slightly older, than to possibly compete with that Anderson male. So instead of fighting the new leopard, he'll push Impala, so he thinks he's got a better chance if we had to have a fight against Impala than he would against the Anderson male. Thanks very much for that, Siberia. Good morning, Donna and Safari. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Always great to have you guys in the back of the vehicle with me. Donna and Safari speculate that possibly he's moving here because he's eaten all the aardvark in his old territory. Well, that is also an option. But generally, his old territory around Arethusa is more sort of those sandy soils. So there are generally more aardvark in those type of soils than we would get here on Djuma. But it is really interesting to see him this far into Impala's territory. Oh, it's a tired kitty. Hi Lisa, welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Lisa. Lisa would like to know, at what age would Kunuma and Quarantine start fighting for their own territories, and would they take the opportunity to take advantage of a male leopard that was indominant but was ill or injured? Most definitely, so they would definitely take advantage of that. More than likely, Quarantine Kunuma will only start really fighting for territory. At the youngest I've heard of is 4, but that's very unusual, but normally about 5 or 6 that they'll really start putting pressure on another male leopard for territory. So they've still got a few years of wandering ahead of them. So awesome to be able to have found this guy this morning. A little bit disappointed it wasn't Kunuma, but still amazing to be able to have tracked a male leopard on foot, and the first time I've ever tracked and found this particular leopard on foot. Morning, Dave from Toronto. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Dave. Dave's asking a more general question, but I'm going to focus it a little bit more on leopards. What is the strangest some of the strangest behavior of animals in this area? Mating rituals, predator evasion, and all sorts of things like that. So Dave, we'll talk about leopards first, as sitting right next to one. So one of the strangest leopard behaviors I've ever witnessed was a young male leopard called Kunuma. He stalked up to an adult buffalo bull, which is far out of his sort of range of food to being caught, and he already had a full belly. He'd had a bushbuck kill stashed up in a tree, and this buffalo bull was sitting in a wallow, and he just snuck up to that buffalo and smacked it on the bum. And then when the buffalo chased him, he just jumped up the tree and sort of snarled down at the tree. And we must remember that all these animals have different personalities, like humans would. Some animals are more tolerant of vehicles around them, some aren't. Some are more shy and retiring, even though they've all grown up in the same area. So animal behavior can vary differently from animal to animal. Whereas it comes to leopards' mating rituals, the females actually initiate most of the mating, and they will often move well out of territory to mate with a male, and will mate with multiple males during false estrus and real estrus. And the reason they mate with multiple males, they'll mate with all males that possibly their cubs might come into contact with, and so all the guys running around think that they're the daddies, and that'll stop them killing those cubs. Because if a new male leopard had to come into an area and hadn't mated with the female, he would definitely kill the cubs. That causes the female to come into estrus within about 10 days, and so she would start mating again, and then the next litter would be sired by the new dominant male. And also on leopard movements, just on a side note, it's probably why Shadow and Sindile, her 9-month-old cub, have been moving further and further into Karila's territory. Not so much that they're trying to take her territory, but more so that they're trying to avoid the Anderson male, who would definitely kill that young 9-month-old cub if given the opportunity. And Dave, I'll get back to some more strange animal behavior of the other animals a little bit later on the drive. Well, thanks very much for the information, MJ Bradley. MJ has sent through that Anderson male is about 7, so very much in his prime. Tingana is 9 and Impala is 10. Thanks very much for that, MJ. Very interesting info. James and I both think that Impala might be a little bit older than 10. He looks a little bit more battle scarred, but we could be wrong. As I said, it's very difficult to know for sure. There's always a lot of theories about where leopards come from and who's related to who in the Sabi Sands, and sometimes there's great debate amongst the guides and trackers about where a leopard's from and how old he is. Hi, James on Twitter. James would like to know, is that normal or does he look a little roughed up under his right ear? Just going to have a quick look, James, with my binoculars. Can we get any tighter there, Andrew? Tight as we can go. Okay, thanks. There we go. Well spotted, James. It is normal. It looks like he scratched some ticks there, and those are the little blood spots there. So it is definitely normal. Where the ears start getting tatty, that's normally from biting flies. So that is quite a common occurrence as a leopard gets older. Hi, Angie from Ohio. Angie would like to know if Impala gets pushed out of his territory by Tingana, would he try push another male, or is he too old? Angie, it very much depends. Unfortunately, we are not, I don't know which males to the north and to the east of him, whether it's a younger male or older male. It is possible that he would definitely try move into another male's territory if that option was open to him. But if he's surrounded by younger males, unfortunately that option's probably not open to him, and he would either have to physically fight one of the males to the north or the east, or Tingana. Now this is always a big risk for a leopard, and quite often male leopards will try to avoid that at all costs. I've seen 2 big male leopards literally stand a meter from each other, scent marking and doing that wonderful sawing roar to try to avoid fighting. But if it does come to it, he will probably have to fight, and I think personally he doesn't stand a good chance against Tingana. I think Tingana is physically a bit bigger and also a bit younger, so has the upper hand, but it's very difficult for me to know what's happening further to the north and east. So who knows whether he'll push through and into another male's territory. If he loses the fight but survives it, he will then sort of become a nomadic male. He'll sneak around the edges of other leopards' territories, just trying to survive. And unfortunately, when male leopards get to the stage, it is quite sad, and they do start looking quite skinny and beaten up, and they take chances, and they do end up generally dying from the wounds that they get between this period, or being killed by another male leopard. So we broadcast live onto the internet on the National Geographic website. It's www.wildsafari.live.com.
So is this going out live?
Yes, we're live right now. Well, everyone who's staying at Vuyatela says hello to everyone in the world who's watching a sleeping leopard at the moment.
So, sorry, do you just drive around all day, or is it?
It's 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening.
It doesn't matter what you see. It's like not specific. To
Not specific. The joys of being live.
Yeah.
So if there's no leopards, we've got to talk about chojos and plants and trees and grass and whatever we can find.
How long have you been doing this?
The holes of the side of your truck.
Those are a long story that we won't just go into just yet. What I can do is I can come round to the lodge and give you guys a better explanation when we're not live.
Okay, cool. That would be great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Morning, Edward. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Edward would like to know, is it regular for certain species to become, or certain predators to become specific, hunting specific species, or is this just Tingana's quirk? It depends again on the area. You must remember that a lot of animal behavior is area specific rather than species specific. So for example, lions in the Okavango Delta and the Chobe area will hunt elephants when there's not a lot of other game around. The lions in this area would very seldom do that. They specialize more in buffalo. So quite a lot of it depends on availability of prey species. And I think what happened with Tingana, he just happened to be in an area that has a very high density of aardvark and figured out that they weren't the hardest things in the world to catch, even though they can actually move quite quickly, except for the aardvark that sits on the back of my vehicle. He's a bit slow. But I think it is a learned behavior. A lot of your predators can learn and will learn behavior. So I've seen lions that specialize in digging warthogs out of their holes, but that's only in very soft sandy soils. So in areas where you've got more clay, they wouldn't do that, they wouldn't be able to. Oh, look behind the leopard. Oh, unfortunately, what was behind the leopard disappeared. It was a little eastern bearded scrub robin, a very pretty bird. But while he's sleeping, we're going to hang around here for a little bit to make sure he doesn't move again, or maybe possibly go for a drink. We're going to go back to Commander Bond and see what he's been up to for the last little while, and we'll be back with you a little later in the show.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Jiga. We were just sort of bumbling about the wilderness until about 2 minutes ago, and we had some lion tracks just further back on the road there. They have now disappeared, so we're going to see if we can't just pick them up and see where they're going. Literally in the last 3 minutes we found them. So we're near Gowrie Dam. I'm assuming if they'd come down there, one of our zoomies would have immediately alerted us to their presence, but we're just going to do a little turn around there and then go back towards where we saw the tracks and see if we can't pick up on them. Looked like at least one male and perhaps a female or two. Difficult to say who they would have been with those numbers, but maybe we will be lucky. So we'll have a quick look at the waterhole and then go back that way. They're definitely not on the road here at the moment. Hello, PK from Iowa. An interesting question. Have I ever seen a sleeping cat dreaming? I'm assuming you mean like when you're... What do you got? Squirrel. Okay, we're just going to look at a squirrel here while we just listen for a couple of alarm calls maybe and see if those lions aren't around. PK, like you mean when a pet sort of does its thing, when they kick, and you often imagine that a dog is chasing something in a dream. I don't think I've seen a cat do it, actually. I don't think I've seen a leopard doing the same sort of thing, or an elephant or a lion doing the same sort of thing. But I'm sure it's possible that they could. I've never seen it myself that I can remember. And there goes the squirrel. Right, so there's nothing going on here at the waterhole. So we're going to go to the edge of the wall, turn round, come back, and just drive around this general area. I don't think those tracks look particularly fresh, but I do know that that's where we drove last night when we were looking for the leopard. So there must be some time around then. So we'll do a loop around the block rather than trying to bash through after them and see what we can come up with. Nothing alarm calling at the moment. I've so often heard things alarm calling and failed to find whatever they were shouting at. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you can get the dead tree above this black monkey thorn. There are some green pigeons. Beautiful in the light there. Say when?
When?
That is the African green pigeon. Beautiful bird. And they struggle this time of year because there's not much in the way of fruit to eat. Where my parents live down in the Eastern Cape, they have a guava tree that absolutely floods with these things around this time of the year. Beautiful call. Very sort of liquid, peaceful call. I'm not sure how good the colour is on whatever computer screen you happen to be looking at, but the colour on those birds is spectacular. Not quite parrot green, but very beautiful. Very peaceful little scene. Ooh, and there's a saddle-billed stork there, Viam, just way off to the right-hand side. Highly endangered stork. And if you were watching last week, you would have seen Andrew's magnificent camera work as he panned that stork, probably that very animal, flew through the setting sun and settled at this dam. Normally in pairs, and I know that this one is a pair, or part of a pair. Individual can't really be a pair, I suppose. So I don't know where its girlfriend or boyfriend is. I'm trying to see if that's the male or the female. You can tell from the eye that's the male. The female has got a sort of yellow eyeshadow all the way around her eye. Alright, before it gets too warm, we're going to move along, just do a sort of U-turn and then come back over the dam wall. There is somebody behind us, so we'll wait for them to go past, and then we'll go and see if we can't find where those lion tracks end. They will of course end in a lion. Whether we'll be able to find that end or not is another matter. Good morning, good morning. Right. I think if I'm not mistaken, on that vehicle that went past us, there is one of our regular visitors. And I hope those that are not visitors, one of our regular viewers, and I hope that one day everybody who watches this will be able to come out here and experience what we are every day, or so privileged to do every day. That's sort of my aim for this job that I do, is to hopefully inspire you to come out here and experience the peace and the excitement and the sort of primal energy that is the African wilderness. So the trucks, I think, must have headed off towards the sort of east there, through the block, and we're going to do a loop around the block. See if they don't pop out. James, you want to know how tall the saddle-billed stork is. The answer is shorter than me, thankfully. Probably about 4'5". So they're pretty tall, but very daintily built. I will be so pleased if we manage to find some lions here. We have a question all the way from Australia. That is nice to know. Not sure what time of the day it is there. It might indeed be, no, it's probably still today there, but later today, obviously by some margin. You want to know, and it's a nice question, why do some female antelope have horns and others not? I say it's a nice question. Whether I'm able to answer it satisfactorily or not, I'm not sure. So out here, let's have a think. The antelope that do have horns, the females are, I think, pretty much only the Impala. So from the little ones, the steenbok, the duiker, then the bushbuck, the nyala, the kudu, the eland, the females have got horns. Do they? But we don't really find eland here. So in this area, it's pretty much only the Impala that have got, that the females have horns. And no, they don't have horns. I'm talking absolute nonsense. I don't think there are any antelope where the females have horns. Vim, have I lost my mind, or is that correct? So, but things like gemsbok, the female have horns. Females have horns, and why would they have horns and not others? I'm going to say because the need for defense is perhaps slightly greater, or the effectiveness or the use of the horns in defense is greater than it is out here, where the horns are mainly used for males to fight with each other and as a display. That is a really excellent question, and I'm going to have to give it a bit more thought. Any thoughts from the Twitterverse? Most of the time when I can't come up with an answer, you guys come up with a plausible few facts and we string together an answer. So I'm not really sure. Wither, thank you for stumping me this early in the morning. And it is in fact still Wednesday in Melbourne, and half past 4 it is, and so Webber, you're probably having your afternoon tea. Got some nice Impala here. We're just going to stop and have a look. Given the question of the horns, my mind is now racing with trying to come up with an explanation. So you can see a few of those are young rams. Now the ones with there, the one looking forward, is probably a ram from November last year. So he's grown very fast, and he's now got his erupting horns. And the the ewes clearly do not have any horns. So in a species like this, it's pretty obvious the horns are for the males for two reasons. They're used to fight each other, although they seldom kind of stab each other, and they're obviously used for display as well, probably to the females and to each other. So a bit like a peacock's tail. A peacock's tail has no obvious reason for being there other than to attract females. There's a number of other theories that if they were used for defense, like I'm just postulating perhaps with a gemsbok or oryx, it's possible that that the females here would also have them. So I'm guessing the males don't use them too much for defense. Really nice to see a little herd of impala like this. It's a nursery herd, so those youngsters are still with their mothers, mainly probably for vigilance and protection, rather than for any sort of nursing. And they're still quite playful, the youngsters. But it's amazing, just like in humans, that playfulness tends to ebb with age. As I said earlier with the hyenas, the playfulness is a crucial part of developing coordination, social standing, muscle definition, and skills, and exactly the same as it is with people. Our kids need to play in order to define their muscles and get their social standing and understand each other. And so it is with the impala and the hyena. There's definitely a few very playful individuals here. Definitely one of the most graceful animals we have out here. And it's that time of day when the heat is just starting to build. And I mean, for winter, this is a pretty standard winter's day for us if there's no cold front coming through. Chilly morning, and by 8:30 in the morning, the cold is lifted, and it'll build to about 27 degrees later on, which is pretty warm for winter. The totally cloudless sky. Very peaceful going into the midday. See his little horns there. Just here they're moving peacefully through the bush. They look particularly unstressed. I was rather hoping the lions would be around here. They don't seem to be. Either that or one of these impalas about to meet a sticky end. decided that we're not a threat, so we've gained their trust, and they're coming closer and closer. Obviously nothing like those hyenas. I don't think they're about to come and steal the oil cap. It's shaking its leg there, Bjorn. Can you see that?
Which one?
This one here, just walking behind. Oh, she stopped doing it now. No, there's something wrong with her right leg. It's very odd. All right, I think we'll leave these impalas to enjoy their morning snack. Press on. So the lion tracks were basically heading in this direction in a general way. Very large block here. But like I say, I think from early last night, not very fresh. As far as I know, no one has perhaps we'll find them lying in the shade.
Welcome back, everyone. It seems like the gremlins have got onto the jigger with James, but we're still with this beautiful male leopard Tingana. I'm just trying to make space quickly so that other game drive vehicles can also come in a bit closer. Proving a little bit more difficult than I originally expected to go that way. What do you think? I'm going to make it round past that gardenia. No. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. I'll move you now, Andrew. Whoa! Do you mind, Andrew? It's quite sore. Thank you. There you go, Andrew. How's that? Good. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. We're just making some space so if the other vehicle wants to come in, they can also come in a bit closer. A little bit of 25-point turn this morning. So while you were away, we found out that he has a kill as well. So he's killed us. It looks like a female duiker, which is in the jackalberry on top of a termite mound, just to sort of the southeast of us. So that's really good news. This is the first time. There we go. Andrew's going to show you. We will try to show you the kill a little bit later. But this is the first time in a long while we've actually had a leopard on a kill. So an actual stable leopard sighting, not passing through. Sorry, just give me a second. It's become quite warm. Peeling off a couple of layers. So he's killed a female duiker by the looks of things, and he's put it up in the jackalberry. What a great spot. He's got a nice big cool jackalberry. He's got lots of shade around here, and he's also got water very close by. So as a leopard go, you don't get much better than this. Oh, he's tired cat. Full belly, full of duiker. Peeling off a bit of extra territory from Impala. So, very interesting. This is as far into Impala's territory as we've ever seen him before. And where we started tracking him, the tracks came from around quarantine clearings, which is very much part of Impala's territory. Oh, unfortunately we're getting a bit of heat haze off my bonnet. I'm just going to try to reverse a little bit so we can stop that. So sorry about that. So the vehicle's been working hard as we've been crashing through the bush, so bit of heat haze coming off the bonnet of the vehicle. So we've got some information about Impala's lineage. I haven't heard anything about Tingana yet, but apparently Impala was born way down in the southeastern Sabi Sands at a place called Lion Sands, and he's probably as far away in the Sabi Sands as he can get from his natal territory. So he would have moved through the whole central sands into the northern Sabi Sands to get here. And well, there we go. I've got some information about Tingana from Karen. Karen says Tingana's lineage is not known. He arrived after independence and was estimated to be about 9 years old. So there we go. So he appeared and was very shy in the beginning and has slowly become accustomed to vehicles as time has gone by. So that's the wonderful thing about living in an open system like we do, where you've got in total around 3.5 million hectares of unfenced wilderness for the animals to move about in. And very interesting, there's been some very interesting research by Panthera on male leopard dispersals in the last couple of years. So that most of the research that's ever been done has been done on resident and dominant females and males in an area, and they've been collared and followed for extensive periods. But Panthera has recently started doing some research on dispersal males, so young males that are about to leave their natal territory. And there were 2 young males that were collared in a place called Pinda, private game reserve in northern Zululand, and they had satellite collars, so once a day it would ping off and send to the computer where these leopards have gone. And one of those young males moved from northern Zululand to Crocodile Bridge inside the Kruger National Park. That is over 300 kilometers. So it is possible that leopards can pop up anywhere. And the other young male went the opposite direction and went about 200 kilometers south down the east coast. So young male leopards can disperse very, very large distances if need be, but generally not the case. They'll generally move 4 or 5 territories over, or even 3, 4 territories over. But it all depends, and remember, the animals, we write the books and the papers, the animals are quite happy to completely ignore them whenever they choose. Hi, Leslie from California. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Leslie. Leslie's got quite an interesting question for us. Leslie would like to know why lion and leopard have evolved such different coats, even though they evolved around the same time in the same area. Well, Leslie, they've got very different strategies, hunting strategies, and also a leopard is a solitary animal, whereas a lion is very much a social animal, the only social cat, in fact. And the reason they do this, leopard generally do spend a little bit more time around drainage lines and thickets, and they have a much more varied habitat range than a lion. So they need this sort of great camouflage. Like as you can see there, he almost just blends into the bush as we zoom out. See if you can spot him. So isn't that? And we know he's there, but you see how those different rosettes break up the outline. Where there is a lion is not always, but generally a more grassland species, and they're a cooperative hunter, so they don't need camouflage to the same degree, even though that tawny coat of theirs does work very well. And the reason the leopards is like that is definitely because their habitat is so varied, from rainforests to alpine moorlands in Ethiopia and to fynbos in the Western Cape. So it has the greatest use in variable habitats, where the lions are slightly more specific in their habitats. It's bushveld and grassveld, don't really occur in true rainforest or at very high altitudes. So that's probably the reason that there's such a diverse evolutionary difference between lions and leopards. You can see his ears twitching there. I'm trying to keep away those biting flies. And we've got an update in from Blair. And Blair said Karula was definitely seen mating with him about a month ago for 5 days. And so if she does have cubs, he would definitely be the father. Blair, it is a strong likelihood, but definitely not definite. Only about 20% of copulations actually result in cubs, and if it was only a month ago, those cubs would only still being born in 2 months. So she might be pregnant. I also heard she mated with another male leopard to the east that I'm not sure of, and she was seen mating with Mvula in the north around that time. So it's very difficult to judge which leopard is the father, and without, as I say, without biopsy darts and taking the DNA and genetics and testing, it's near impossible to tell which leopard is the father of cubs. You'd have to take DNA from the cubs and from all the male leopards in the area to determine that, to be 100% sure. We can always speculate, and it's lots of fun to speculate, but to say which leopard is the father by gospel is a near impossible feat. Hi, Tula. Tula would like to know, she says, normally we always see leopards very alert and on the move and very seldom sleeping like they are. Well, Tula, actually, leopards, like lions, are quite lazy. They'll actually sleep for about 18 hours of the day. And even though it looks like he's fast asleep, he is still very much alert. He'll watch, his ears are listening to everything. But I don't think he's going to do too much today from here, but we'll definitely come back here this afternoon. But before we move along, I just want to show you the kill that's in the tree. So that's how we know he's going to be, so we know he's definitely going to be around later. So let me just move around and I'll show you where the duiker kill is. everyone.
Hello, how are you, Brent?
Good, thanks. You guys having a good morning?
For finding him.
Oh, thanks. No problem.
You're the lucky guy.
I know. I'm very lucky. The first time I've managed to walk Tingana on foot, so quite exciting for me. Yeah, well, we have an agreement.
Yes.
I sneak them an Impala every now and then.
Sorry.
No problem. That would be most appreciative. Thanks, Andy. Are we behind us, our park? All good. All good. Thanks. I'm just going to have a look at the munte and then have a farm. So, I'm just going to try get us into a spot. There we go. Can you see it from there, Andrew?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you can see he's got a female duiker up in the tree. Andrew's going to show you in a second. There we go. So you can see the hoof there, head's lying, you can just see the ears there. So he's eaten the majority of it, that's why he's so full. But it is a relatively small animal for a really big leopard like that. But he's definitely going to be around here this evening, and hopefully we'll catch him coming down to Treehouse Dam for a drink. We're going to leave this area now. There's some other game drives that are coming in. I don't think he's going to do too much more this morning apart from sleep off his belly full of duiker. Here we go, you can see he hasn't opened the stomach yet. Managed to keep that closed, and that's probably why we don't have any hyenas in residence just yet. So, while we try to get ourselves out of this quite thick block that we managed to find Tingana in, we are going to cross back to James and see what he's been up to, and we'll be back with you a little later, so have fun with Commander Bond.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Jiga. I'm walking down the road here trying to see if I can't find some evidence of the lions. I have failed to find any evidence of the lions so far, but what did pop up behind the vehicle was a duiker, and it struck me that I wonder how many times I've missed animals that have nipped out behind the vehicle as we've gone past. It's also so important to stop every so often and have a listen to what's going on and just get a sense of the place, which you don't get when you're driving in the engine. While it's not particularly noisy, definitely does block out a lot of noise. There's quite an interesting tree here. I say quite interesting. It's not. It's probably not going to change your lives, but it's got quite a nice feel to it. It's called Erita amina. Say that a few times after a few scotches. Erita amina, or the sandpaper bush. And it has got an incredibly rough and hard texture to the leaf. And so many of the leaves out here have got to have some form of defense against being eaten, because there's so much that likes to eat them. And so some plants will have thorns, some plants will have chemical compounds that protect them, like the tannins and various other things, and some of them will just have a very unpleasant texture. So I'm going to pretend I'm a herbivore in search of something delicious to eat, and I'm going to put this in my mouth and see what the feeling is on my tongue. That is very unpleasant. Let's get the sense of the taste. Yeah, it's a little bit like eating a green peach that has been covered in some form of sandpaper. I suspect you'll find that it's quite rich in protein, and that's why it's got this kind of very unpleasant sort of defensive mechanism. And it's a rare defensive mechanism. Many of the animals have adapted to living with thorns, so you've seen giraffe wrapping their tongues around knob thorns and pulling them off. I mean, if you did that to your hand, you'd shred the skin. Many of the animals have adapted digestive mechanisms to cope with the chemicals, but perhaps because this is quite a rare, I mean, there are a few plants that have a furry or rough edge to the leaves, but perhaps this is a newer method of defending yourself against a herbivore. Yeah. Not great. Getting hungry this time of the morning, of course, and so we like to do our little eating experiments round about now. We're going to carry on, just seeing if we can't pick up. I feel like I've been banging on for lions for about 2 days, which I suppose I have. Well, we're going to just see if we can't pick them up. I've driven the boundaries of this reserve about 4 times in the last 2 days. And so I'm rather hoping that we'll have some success with lions today. So that was Erita amina, the sandpaper bush. Hello, Riley from Washington State. Hope it's not raining too much. I seem to remember Washington State being a pretty rainy place. You want to know if have I seen an arax or a scimitar-horned oryx? I haven't. As far as I'm aware, they're up in Arabia, in the sort of up in the deserts around this sort of northern end of the Sahara. So I haven't seen one. I've seen one in a zoo, but I haven't seen one in the wild. Beautiful animals. And I just want to go back to the question that Bill asked. Bill from British Columbia. I think that's where he's from. Hello, Bill. Likewise, hope it's quite warm and pleasant where you are. You want to know why does it seems to you that the elephants that we're seeing, or we aren't seeing so many elephants as normal? And I think that there is an answer to that. First of all, there's a certain element of randomness. So, elephants will be, there are definitely lion tracks on this road. So, Bill, there will be an element of sort of random movement where elephants will move in a certain, well, to us, unpredictable manner. But certainly, as the winter develops, the water becomes more concentrated, and the need for them to drink becomes higher, actually, because the food is so much drier. And so the herds will tend to congregate around permanent water, and that's why in summer, in this sort of area, where there are natural pans that hold water that are now dry,
Pan to the sort this out during the week. Welcome back, everyone. The gremlins are on James. They were all over me yesterday, but I seem to have shaken them off, and they're all over James today. So welcome back. What a fantastic start. The gremlins on me now. Black screen here. Oh, welcome back. As I thought I'd shaken off the gremlins, they came back to jump on my back, but it looks like the aardvark hit them with a big stick and got the gremlins off us. So welcome back. I don't think Tingana is going to move anymore, as I said, and we're giving the other vehicles a chance to go view him. We had such a fantastic long time there, and the whole story, I mean, from tracks to walking after seeing him on foot once, losing him, crashing around in the bush, and then literally jumping out of the car, and he's less than 2 meters away from me, and slight bit of panic, and the Art Fox boys, and he's less than 2 meters away from me, and slight bit of panic, and the Art Fox boys, leopard, leopard, right next to me. A bit of heart rate's going, so it's been a fantastic sunrise safari for me, and I'm quite sure James has been keeping you thoroughly entertained on the other end. And so our plan is now, it's quite warm, you can see I've shed all my layers, so what I was thinking is go see if we can find some general game around quarantine and the Juma Dam Camp, and have just a nice little general look in that area. So what a fantastic sunrise it has been so far. Morning, Teresa. Always great to have you on the back of our game drive vehicle on the sunrise safaris and the sunset safaris. Teresa's been doing some research. Thanks very much for that, Teresa. We really do appreciate it when you guys go the next level to get us that really specific information. And she's found a paper by Columbia University about where you can get the DNA samples from leopards. So you can take DNA from dung, but it has to be really, really fresh dung, and that is one of the ways that it's used. Another more common way that researchers use it's called a biopsy dart. So basically, it's a little dart that you put in a dart gun, and when you're close to a lion or a leopard or hyena or whatever animal you're looking for DNA from, and depending on the animal, depends on the size of the dart and the needle. So basically, the needle is hollow. So as a normal hypodermic needle would be, except that the hole's not on the edge, it's sort of a hollow point. Let me see if I've got some of old darts at home. I must remember to bring them next time. And so basically you would fire that, and it doesn't have a barb or anything, and it's pretty much like, it's a little bit uncomfortable for the animals, it's like a bee sting, but when it is an important conservation tool, so sometimes like that, a little bit of a bee sting is sort of okay for the animal. So you would fire it into the side of the animal, and it would take a tiny bit of flesh, so not even half a centimeter, a couple of millimeters of flesh and blood, and it would then immediately fall out, and the animal normally goes, "Whoa," like he's been stung by a wasp, which I've seen before, and sort of gets very confused and will walk off a few meters and then lie down and normally go to sleep again. And then what happens is you wait for the animal to move off, and then you go collect that biopsy dart. With the biopsy stuff, it's very important. We actually, on the research teams that I've been involved in the past, that we have done this type of stuff, you will immediately put that sample into a little sort of test tube, and it will then be put into liquid nitrogen, because often in the field, specifically in areas far away from towns and stuff like that, the DNA obviously will corrode if it gets rotten, so that will immediately go into a liquid nitrogen canister and needs to go in within about 4 hours of you taking that sample. Otherwise the DNA degrades, and they're not able to get a decent sample from that, and that's generally in the heat. The problem with taking DNA from feces, or even though you can, is that feces does degrade even faster because of all the little cojos, what are they? You know what word I'm looking for? Bacteria. Thank you, Andrew. All the bacteria in feces. But thank you very much for that. Thanks for going to that extra bit of effort to find us some above and beyond information.
Hi, Crystal from California, who's also gone above and beyond in the quest for the genetic answers to leopard lineages. Crystal has found out that in quite a lot of species, a female will mate with multiple males, and different embryos will be inseminated by different males' sperm. So you can have multiple fathers in the same litter. I know this is quite common in lions. I'm not 100% sure with leopards, to be completely honest. I'm not sure whether that is possible with leopards. I definitely gonna have to do some reading about that. Maybe I'll ask James, he might have a better idea than I do. But for some reason I remember somewhere in the recesses of my mind that I don't think that happens with leopards, but I'm not 100% sure. If you guys want to check, by all means, please, I really appreciate it. And if you do find a little bit more information whether leopard litters can have multiple fathers, I would really love to know that. And you can send those answers to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Again, thanks everyone for going really in depth on this and helping me out here. It's amazing having you guys with us, because we're never really without an answer, because we've got so many helpful people on the back of our vehicle every game drive. Hi, Crystal from California again. Crystal's been doing some serious research. Thanks again, Crystal. Nice to hear from you again. Crystal's found out some very interesting information about menelism and pseudo-menelism. And I'm also going to touch a little bit on leucism. Now, I'm throwing out all these funny words, and I'm going to explain all of them shortly for those of you who might not know. So there's always quite a lot of debate about black panthers or black leopards and where they're found, have we seen them. Crystal's now found that there's another form of menelism called pseudo-menelism, and it creates very similar markings to like a king cheetah has. So the rosettes would merge and become more stripes than rosettes. And she would like to know if I know this is more common than menelism. Menelism is a sort of when you had completely black animals. Well, they're not completely black, you can still see the rosettes hiding underneath. And if I've ever seen a pseudo-menelistic leopard, and if they are more common than menelistic leopards. Crystal, I've never ever seen a pseudo-menelistic leopard. This is the first time I've ever heard about it, so thanks very much. That's really great information. I'm definitely going to have to try and read up a bit more on this. I'm not sure. The way I understand menelism, leucism, and maybe pseudo-leucism, I'm not sure works, is that it's a recessive gene, and you need a double recessive. So you need both parents to be a carrier, and both of them to have a double recessive for this to happen. And in areas where that gene is common, it's still rare, but not completely unknown to have these different color morphs. So menelism is probably the most common of those strange color morphs that I've heard of. I've been lucky enough when I was very young to see a menelistic leopard in northern Zululand, very briefly as it ran across the road while I was on my way to school. But there's another color morph that has been spotted quite in this last couple of years, has been seen a few more times, and it's what they call a strawberry leopard. So it almost has a pinkish appearance, and that is leucism, a lack of pigment that is causing that. And again, it would have been a double recessive. So Crystal, thanks very much. You're gonna force me to go hit my books after the Sunrise Safari and see if I can find out a little bit more on pseudo-menelism for you guys for the Sunset Safari. Hey, Purple Rain! Nice to hear from you again, Purple Rain. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Purple Rain would like to know if I've ever had to personally dart an animal for research, or have I been with a group that darts, and what were the reasons we darted these animals? Well, Purple Rain, unfortunately, or fortunately, I've never had to dart an animal. Legally, only vets are allowed to do the darting, and obviously quite often it's a very complicated combination of drugs that work specifically on different animals. So I've been present for the darting of elephants, rhino, buffalo, sable, kudu, lion, leopard, wild dog, cheetah, rhino, giraffe. I might be forgetting one or two there, but I've been very fortunate in the way I've grown up, that I've spent a lot of time around different things. Some of it has been for game capture, which is moving from different animals from different properties to properties. And if you notice, there was a very cute little guy who just scooted across the road. There he is, he's hiding in this little thicket. I think he's about to make another dash. Unfortunately disappearing. It was a little dwarf mongoose. And fortunately I can only see one, and the others are not quite out in the open, and he looks a little bit nervous. Oh wait, he's popped up onto a fallen down combretum. Here we go. Looks like he's looking for his other friends, and I can't hear the contact calling you normally hear around a group of dwarf mongoose. But look at him right up in that fallen combretum, getting a bit of height. Looks like he might have been, or she might have been left behind, trying to find the others. That's why she possibly wasn't the most relaxed when we came across it. Scurried across the road. Oh no, I'm incorrect. This is the scout, making sure everything's safe ahead. I've just looked to my left and there are dwarf mongoose all over the place. There's one just to the left, another scout over here, right opposite the art park. Oh, that's on its way. Moving. So it looks like the rest of them are whoop, chop. And then there's, in the distance, there's a whole bunch. There we go. Off they go. All foraging. They really don't like that open ground between little thickets. They try to cover that ground as quickly as possible. And that's why they have all these scouts around, to make sure there's no predatory birds or anything that might want to eat them. Quite windy, so they're going to be a little bit nervous today, so I don't want to spend too much time now as they're out foraging, and we might affect their hearing and sight because they might concentrate on us, and that might cause one of them to be snacked by a bird of prey. So we're going to move along past them. So, Purple Rain, sorry, back to your question after a dwarf mongoose interlude. So I won't cover everything. So quite a lot of that has been during game capture, and that is moving animals from one property to another. On the research front, I was very lucky to be invited quite a few years ago as an observer to go watch the laparoscopic vasectomy on an African elephant bull. And in certain of the smaller reserves, the elephant population is getting too big, and it's a small fenced reserve. So they're trying different ways to control the population. And they've tried hormones and stuff on the females, but that doesn't seem to work. It does affect the females' bodies quite badly. But using in a small population would never work in an area where you've got a lot of elephants coming in and out in an open system. So they would sort of snip a certain percentage of the bulls just to keep the breeding curve on the downward. And this doesn't affect the hormones and general behavior of the bulls. So the bulls would still mate and think they're mating and go through their must cycles. They just wouldn't be able to propagate. So that was an interesting experiment that happened on a government reserve to the south and east of us. And then with a lot of the carnivore stuff, I was very fortunate enough to be involved with an NGO from time to time by the name of APCRO, which means African Predator Conservation Research Organization, quite a mouthful. And that is a very small one that is funded by a very passionate vet from the States, and he has a great love for African carnivores. So a lot of that darting and catching and taking blood samples and fecal samples and teeth and checking the teeth of lions and leopards and wild dogs and cheetahs and hyenas was all to do with disease and genetics, to see how inbred or not inbred certain animals were in different systems, and to check the disease levels in those systems, because disease in your social predators especially can spread through the whole population very quickly and be very detrimental to the whole meta population as a whole. So that's just touching on it a little bit. I hope that helps explain a little bit of the darting experience that I've been lucky enough to be involved with over the years. Hello, Siso from Hammond's Kraal. Oh, hello. Siso, I'll get to your question in a second. That's amazing when you're not seriously on the hunt for leopard. I'm not going to be able to show you these tracks. They're quite difficult to see on this hard ground, but I've got tracks of a female leopard. I just want to check if there's a female, two sets of tracks, because this could quite easily be Shadow and Sindile. They have been seen in this area quite a lot. For those of you who are new, Shadow is a female leopard who we see on our sort of south and western boundaries, and Sindile is a 9-month-old cub, and she has walked down here. Well, that's very interesting. We'll definitely keep an eye on those tracks as we meander forward. Well, Siso would like to know, in summer, leopards regulate their temperature by lying in the shade, and during the winter months, how do they control their temperature, and are they endothermic or ectothermic? Wow, Siso, nice use of some good biological terms there. So endothermic, I'm going to see if I remember correctly. Endothermic is something like us, or a leopard that is able to sort of get the body temperature is controlled from inside. Ectothermic is a reptile, so they would have to lie out in the sun, and they use the different climates and whatnot where they are to control their temperature. So a leopard's definitely endothermic. It's a mammal. You don't have any ectothermic mammals. That is sort of very much the domain of the reptilians. But what they would do to control, because it is quite cold, they will quite often in the early morning or around this time where it's not too hot yet, they'd like to lie in the sort of sun, get a bit of warmth. But even then, a leopard would still get hot enough that it would definitely move to the shade even during the winter months. Okay, well, I can't see any trucks continuing there. I'm just going to have a quick look on this road to see if she possibly went this way. Hi, Shanae, welcome back on the safari. Shanae, nice to have you on the back of the vehicle. Shanae is asking how long it took me to remember or re-remember the Latin names of trees and things, and she's asking if I have any quick tips for her on how to remember them. And well, I've got a quick tip on this particular one right in front of us, which is magic guarri bush. So I learned a little bit differently to everyone else. I was very lucky in the family I grew up with, and one of our big games while doing family car trips was the Latin name of trees. So I've quite fortunately got most of them stuck in my head for the rest of my life. They've been drummed into me from a young age. So on that, we've got another little question from Megan, who's wondering which tree I made my toothbrush out of yesterday, and it was the guarri tree, one right in front of us. But while we're on the Latin names, this particular bush is called a Euclea divinorum, sorry. And the way I remembered that, and a nice easy way to remember this one, is that I'm going to go grab a branch for this. Just give me a second. I'm going to need my bigger knife. We need a very specific type of branch for this. Okay, how am I here, Andrew? You're good there. Here we go. So the way I remember this one, divinorum, it is used by certain water finders, so traditional doctors and that, as a way to divine for water. So if you've ever heard about water diviners, actually, so take the pole like this, and then you would walk, and theoretically, where there's water underneath you, the pole should start pulling down towards the ground. Believe it or not, I believe this works as well, and there's quite an interesting reason for it. So that's how it got its Latin name, Euclea divinorum, from water divining. So it's used traditionally as a water divining rod. This isn't an ideal branch, but I didn't want to chop down the whole tree to make a divining rod. Normally you would use one of the much bigger, thicker branches to make a divining rod, and I'm not sure why, and there's no real scientific explanation, but water is attracted to water, and these trees have a very high water content, which is possibly why they are attracted to water. I've seen other methods of divining for water where someone will balance a plastic bottle of water on their hand, and as you walk over water, it falls off. It works. I cannot explain it, but I've seen it work, and I've tried it, and it does work. But that's a nice way to remember the guarri, Euclea divinorum, the divining tree. For other trees, some of them are quite difficult, and I don't really have tricks to remember, but I think the best way, and I've seen guides that I've trained and stuff over the years, have sort of made up sort of little poems or songs. I'm trying to remember one of them now. There was a girl who trained in Zambia who made up a song about Diospirus mespiliformis. I can't remember how it goes, I'm afraid, which is the jackalberry, which is where that Tingana had a kill in a jackalberry there, and I can't think of a way to remember. I don't know, I'm quite lucky with my brain. I just sort of, I've had that stuff around me for so long that I remember. Another good, interesting one that's got a little take on it is the Acacia exuvialis, and I grew up in an area where we didn't have any Acacia exuvialis, and then when I moved to the Lowveld, it was one of the first prominent little acacias that I had to learn, and they're very, very thorny and spiky and quite short, and when you're tracking you walk into a lot of them, and I always sort of joked you have to be quite exuberant, even though it's not quite the same as exuvialis. Exuvialis, you have to be quite exuberant to dive through one, but possibly not the best. And I think, Sinead, the best advice I can give you is to try find a way that works for you, and I think everyone's brains work differently. I'm sure James will have a different method to me, and we can maybe have a chat and see what works, and everything works differently for everyone. I know James, when both of us learned a new tree the other day, and I'm trying to remember which one it was now, and I would sort of sit there and keep the name in my mind, and James would say it out over and over and over again. Maybe that works for you, I'm not sure. And it was I remember what it is now. It was a Rhys Wensii, and it's a little plant that grows not that common, but grows on termite mounds around here. And then just a follow-up from yesterday's sunset safari, while we're talking about Latin names. Actually, just quickly, we've got a nice knob thorn here to the right, nice big knob thorn, and that's Acacia nigrescens, and nigrescens niger. I'm not sure, but quite a lot of things that have niger or nigrescens in the Latin name were probably first described from the Niger River Valley area in West Africa. So that's another way. Some of the trees are more about where they were seen or first described rather than the actual attributes of the tree. So yesterday, sorry, I just thought I heard something for a second. Did you hear that, Andrew? No, I thought I heard an alarm call. No, nothing now. False alarm, sorry folks. Yesterday we had a fruit chafer, and you guys were wonderful enough to find out the name for me, and it was a Latin name, and I think we're going to have to start giving the rest of our staff Latin name lessons, and I couldn't find out what it was through the radio, so just before I forget, as we come off towards the end of the sunrise safari, the Latin name for that fruit chafer was Pedinorina trivittata. Bang! Andrew just sort of did a fist bump there, Pedinorina trivittata. And I did wander around at about 5:15 this morning with a cup of coffee going Pedinorina trivittata, Pedinorina trivittata, and with Andrew trying to throw in other words to confuse me, but managed to get that one out. So we're just going to have a quick listen. I'm still convinced I heard something there, and we had those leopard tracks in this area. So we're going to sit here and listen for a few more minutes. We're just going to close up now. We've had such a fantastic sunrise safari, and I'm sure Commander Bond has been keeping you very entertained on the other side. But we had such an amazing, it's such a great experience to be able to track and then get off the vehicle, follow the leopard tracks on foot, find the leopard, and then lose it, and then crash around and get off to track again, and then find him on foot again. And such a special thing. And now nice to see Tingana, and very interesting to see him. The reason you carry a rifle, I said I prefer walking without a rifle when I'm on my own.
But when you have someone, and you must remember Scott had a big backpack and an aerial off the back and a camera, so in that situation I completely 100% would be carrying a rifle. It's just when I'm on my own, and quite a lot of us when we're on our own would probably walk without a rifle, but as soon as you have the responsibility of another person, then it is a very silly thing not to carry a firearm. So I don't think our danger ratings very high or whatnot. It's just a safety thing when you are responsible for another human being's life. So guys, again, fantastic. Thanks for joining us on the Sunrise Safari. I've had an absolute ball. The aardvark looks like he's had a good time behind me there. And thanks again to everyone in final control. Unfortunately, Jigger is battling some gremlins at the moment, so James isn't going to be able to say goodbye to you, so I'll do it on behalf of him and VM, and I'm sure they will thank you immensely. And very great, and hopefully we'll see you all on the Sunset Safari. Have a wonderful day or morning or evening wherever you are in the world, and see you a little bit later.